Okay, we have audio. Fantastic. So, just a quick introduction to what the EFA program is. It came into law in 2023 through the LEARNS Act, which did a lot of different things. But probably the biggest thing it did was create the EFA program. And the purpose of the EFA program is to empower parents to choose the education that they think their kid needs. And so for some families, we recognize that that is public school. For some families, that's private school. Or for some families, it's one of the 1,000 different ways to do homeschool. So um, when you enter the EFA program, you get money once a quarter that's put into an account online for you. And we're currently partnered with Class Wallet. Last semester we were with Student First. Now we're with Class Wallet, and um, and so the money is put into account in there. It doesn't go directly into your bank account. Then you use that money to buy the educational resources that you need. If you have a tutor, you can use it to pay the tutor. If you need, if you're part of a micro school and you're paying tuition, you can pay the micro school. And you can use it to buy curriculum. You can use it to buy a computer. And there are limits on some of these categories, like computers. You can't just spend all your money and buy, 10 computers. Um, and so like within those regulations, though, parents can choose whatever curriculum they want. They can choose whatever micro school they want. And so that's kind of the uh, general way that it works. So we'll get into some of the details later, and we'll also get into some question and answers. But the first step is going to be applying. So I'm going to walk you through the application process. Um, these applications just opened on Monday. We're going to fill out a fake application here. This is not um, the real website. This is just a test website. But you can go to ArkansasEFA.com, and that will bring you to the real website. So let's go ahead and start. So when you get here, I don't know if you guys can see it. So this is, so ClassWallet is who we're working with, but they have partnered with Fax to run the application portion of the application. So this is actually a Fax website, and the first thing you're going to need to do is create a Fax account. So let's do that. Let's create our account. Greg is helping me today. You can, I think it's a test, so you can probably just do a fake one if you want, but okay. Create a new Fax account. You're gonna put in all your information. You can do, yeah, test person. That's this person's name. You'll need to put in an address here. So, all right, great question. So this, she asked if we have to fill this out for each student. This is just creating your Fax account as a family, as a parent. So you're going to do this you're going to create one account. Then within that account, you're going to add multiple children. Okay? Yes. So this is your name. Okay, this is the parent name because this is the account to use the website. This isn't the application itself yet. Okay, so let's see. We're good. All right, so next, create a username and password. You can just make something up real quick. Right? We're not going to come back here, so you don't need to remember it or anything. Well, that's username. That's username. There we go. Hope you remember that. Oh, it has to be at least 12 characters. I know, I know. Security is getting ramped up.
Okay, let's have Google create one for
me. There we go. Oh.
Come on, Google.
This is the hardest part of the application. If you can get past this, you're basically golden.
I know the problem is he's not standing on his head and holding his left leg up.
That's true. The computer's watching. We're like, you're not. They know. Okay. All right. 4-digit PIN. This is for you to remember, help access your account. We're just gonna make some stuff up real quick. There we go. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. That username is already in use. All right. Test 12. There we go. That's gonna be perfect. All right. I think that's. All right, we're good. We're good. Okay. All right, so we're in. I don't know if you want to say that. Probably not. Probably never. All right, so let's do maybe later. Multi-factor authentication. You want to keep your account secure. We don't need to today because this isn't a real application. All right, so what term are we applying for? You have one choice, 25, 26. Okay, so this is when the application starts. So go back up to the top. So this, you are the applicant technically right now, okay? So in this section, you're answering questions about you, and later we're going to add the students, okay? So let's go in. Our first name is Test. It remembers our last name is Person. All right, we can scroll down. It remembers our address. It brought everything county of residence. All right, we gotta choose that. No, perfect. Email address, date of birth for the parent.
Who wants to go first? I'm old.
All right. Oh, we missed the date, the day. There we go. All right, we're very young. we're about a month old. I wonder how old our kids are going to be. All right. Do you have a co-applicant? We'll put no now because that's easier. But if you want your husband or your wife or your mom or dad to have access to the account, you would put yes here, and you can create a second person that is attached to the account, kind of as a guardian, second guardian of the child. All right. Okay. All right. So this we're going to say yes here for those of you who do have a child already in the program. Does any child that will be listed on this application have a funded student account for this current year right now? So if you applied and didn't get in, then you would still say no. But if you have a student who is receiving money right now this year, then you want to say yes, because there are some slightly different questions for those students. All right, so then because it's a yes, they want you to fill out some survey questions for your experience this year. Go ahead and just answer those real quick, whatever you want. So if you have a student, you'd read through these, talk about how great the EFA program was this past year, and then save and continue. All right, so we missed some field. What did we miss? Oh, this one right here. All right, there we go. Somewhat agree. All right, so this is where you add your student. So let's make up a student name. It's all right. No problem. All right. All right, so for the birthday, the student must be 5 by August 1st. So let's make sure we select a birth date that makes them at least 5. You can click, yeah, there we go. All right, perfect. All right, yeah, choose whatever. Okay, so then let's add a student. We're going to do 2 students because one is going to be a new student, one is going to be a previous student. It's going to be slightly different. So So the social security number is just for data purposes. We're going to we need to compare with like public school records and stuff like that, so we can cross-reference data for students. All right, so we've got 2 students. Let's save and continue. So after we've entered the students, it's going to ask us some questions about the students. So let's say the first student was a participant. So go ahead and click yes. All right, so here's where you are going to want to find the student's class wallet ID. That's very important because students who are in the program already get priority for approval for the next year. So you want to make sure that this ID matches their ID that they have right now. Will you click on this question mark here? So this gives you instructions for where to find it. If you don't know where it is, you go into Class Wallet, you log in, under your account settings, personal settings, you'll see the student ID for that student, and that's what you'll put here. All right, so then let's just look at the required questions. Okay, so this child or ward, it lives with a parent who's a resident of Arkansas. This is basically you affirm that you and the child do live in Arkansas. That is required to participate in the program. The next question is that the child is eligible to enroll in a public elementary or secondary school in Arkansas. Basically, the requirement for that is age. They have to be 5 by August 1st. And there's an upper limit rule that we don't really run into very much. I think if they're allowed to turn 21, I think, during their senior year, during the school year, and then they can complete the year. But if they are already 21, it's something like that. I'm not sure, but that's going to be a pretty rare situation. But we'll say yes here. All right, let's scroll down. All right, so this isn't going to lock you in. All right, this is asking what type of school is the student going to be attending. All right, we look at that drop down. Should be private school, homeschool, or micro school. We can choose homeschool. And so you're not locked into this. This is just to give us an idea. Later, so the way it works is right now we give you approval. It's basically approval. You're eligible for the program. But the final step to actually get in is to verify your enrollment in whatever school you choose. So if you choose homeschool, later this summer, we're going to be verifying that you submit an NOI for this school year. And that's something in Arkansas that you have to do every year for every student. So between the standard dates are between June 15th and August 15th. You can do it after that if you want, but it's usually between those 2 dates. Submit your NOI, we'll check it, and that will be the final step to getting your kid enrolled in the program. You can make it easy on us by making sure you spell your kid's name right and making sure you put in their correct date of birth in both this application and the notice of intent to homeschool. I'm amazed at how many parents have forgotten their kids' birth dates. So it's easier for us to match if you guys get those correct in those applications. So and so we'll do the next kid as private school, and I'll show you what that looks like. So let's just answer no to all of these, and we can talk about. There we go. Nice. We can talk about what prioritization looks like and how that's going to work. Like who gets in, who's going to get into the program. Okay, so all right, so we get down. All right, so what was your primary reason for applying to the Education Freedom Accounts program? You can answer that if you want. These again are optional. Let's keep going. All right, how did you primarily use your EFA funds? This one is required. Let's see. You can choose whatever. Probably to homeschool them was the primary reason. You don't have to answer those, but you guys can read that. Just let us know. It's for just our purposes to help us. And so a lot of people wonder, why is this question here? Will the student participate in the EFA program for the 25-26 school year? This is an application. That's why you're filling it out. Why is this question here? That's here because we do want students who are leaving the program to also fill out these survey questions. So we expect there to be not many, but some students who participated last year aren't going to be participating, but they'll still fill this out to give us some of this survey data that we need. All right, let's go. Oh, I was confused. I was like, why does it say very first test? That's the name of our second student, our test student, so don't be confused. All right, so this student is going to not have a current, so we're going to say no. So you'll notice that the class wallet ID question doesn't pop up. They won't have one, so you don't need to know it. All right, so let's go on. They live in Arkansas, yes. They are at least 5 by August 1st, yes. This student is going to be a private school student. All right, so that brings up this drop down where you get to choose what school they attend, A, B, or C. Now, this is not the real application. This is a test application. In the real application, there will be a list of all EFA private schools, and we will update that as new schools apply. All right, let's see. So then now let's say no to everything else just to make it quick. Just get through that. All right, this is yes. All right, so this could be a good time to talk about prioritization because it had all those questions about, does your student have an IDEA? Did your student attend a DRF school last year? Are they the child of military personnel? All of those were the categories that we used to determine who could participate in the past 2 years. We use those categories to prioritize certain students, as well as just to limit the participation in the program while we learn how to run it. These past 2 years have kind of been like test years, training years. They've been training wheels, kind of. And so now this next year, we're taking the training wheels off. We're letting a lot more people in. And so, but if we happen to reach the maximum, like there's not an official cap, but we do have a limited amount of money. We don't know if we'll spend all of our money or not, but if we do, we're going to use these eligibility categories to determine who gets in and who doesn't. And so the way it works is we have a 3-week period from March 3rd to March 23rd, and we're going to just collect as many applications as we can during that time. And then on March 23rd, we're going to count them up, and if we have room for everybody that applied, all of them get in. You know, 35,000 people apply. We've got enough room for that. They all get in. Okay, but let's say there's more than that, or maybe 45,000. I'm not sure exactly how many we're going to have room for because the budget. You know, we could pull some extra money from here or there to make room. But let's say too many people apply. We're going to take everyone who's applied and put them in order. Okay, so at the top is going to be people who are already in the program. The next is going to be people who applied last year, had a complete application, but weren't able to get in because we ran out of room. The next group is going to be based off of prioritization. Okay, so kids with an IDEA, kids who are participating in the foster care system. Then you go down to students who attended a D or F rated public school the year before. And then you go to students who are students of military or first responders or law enforcement, and then kindergartners. And then below that is people who don't fit into any of those categories. And now I think that most people are going to be in that last category. We had about 14,000 or so people last year who met one of those categories, and we're going to have a lot more than double that this year, spots open. And so I think most people are going to fit into the no special category. And so For those, I think they'll just be ordered by the time in which they apply. So applying earlier is worth it. It could end up being a factor in who gets in within that last category. All right, let's save and continue. Review. Save and continue. Everything looks good. And submit.
Do they have to submit any kind of documentation?
Yes, they do. So don't be confused. It says your application was successfully submitted. You're not done yet. Okay, it's a little bit, but it clarifies itself because you will get an email that says thank you for submitting your application. Here is a link for you to upload the required documentation. Okay, and so the required documentation is two things: proof of residency and proof of age, proof of the child's date of birth. And so the residency is usually going to be a driver's license of the parent filling out the application. You can also use a utility bill, anything that any official documentation that shows your name and where you live, and it has to be in Arkansas. And so then, if you have a student already in the program, you won't need to provide that. And we've had a lot of parents get confused about that because they're like, it didn't ask me for my residency documentation. That's probably because you had a student who is already in the program. That means we have it. We got your residency documentation last year, so you're good to go. It won't ask you for that for any of your kids. And so then the next thing you need is date of birth. So that's usually going to be a birth certificate or a passport. Those are the two things that we usually receive. They'll to upload just to prove what date this child was born. If your child was already in the program, it's not going to ask for that. So if you're reapplying if all your kids are already in the program and you're reapplying for them, it's not going to ask you for any documentation. And so it's just you're going to get here and it's going to say complete and you'll be good to go. But if you have documentation to load, just to go down. So like we do, we can click here, upload your required documentation. And so we have, all right, so see, it's not asking us for residency verification because we said that one of our kids is already in the program. So it's only asking for age. So we need age verification for our second student. His name was very first. So then we don't have anything to upload here, but you'll click ready to upload and you'll choose the document PDF on your computer and upload it here. And then you'll come down here. Actually, do you have just a random PDF laying around that we could click on? Okay, there we go. So then you'll click PDF or images, and then you'll submit it. Do you have a PDF or image that we could throw up there real quick? Perfect.
Oh, JPEG.
Only JPEG images are supported. Yeah. Yeah. If you get through the whole application without any problems, that's a miracle, I'm sure. So there we go.
Let's see if I can pull that up.
They'll be under images, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
Pictures.
yeah.
Here we go. Pictures.
Cool. Picture of us.
Is that one also a JPEG? Okay, well, anyway, I think you guys can figure it out. I think there'll just be a button here that says submit or something. I don't remember exactly, but it's pretty self-explanatory. You're going to choose it and you're going to submit it. And then let's see here.
Validate.
Blurry images. It doesn't matter. Let's go back to home. Let's go back to home. All right, so you will know that you did it correctly. Oh, okay. We agree.
We
All
have
right.
some questions up in the chat just when you're ready.
Okay, continue fax application. Okay, so you will know that you did it. Scroll down here. Age verification is a blank circle. That means not submitted. When this looks like a clock, that means you did it correctly. It's pending review. Someone needs to go in and review that documentation, and after it's been reviewed, it will say complete. All right. Do we have some? You said we have some questions.
Yeah. So we're only looking at age verification and address if the person was not in the program already.
Yes.
Correct. Second question: would you be able to let us know if there's enough spots based off your assessments at the end of this month?
It's so hard to say because we've had a lot of applicants on the first day, but I think a lot of that is because people were under the impression that they had to apply right away to get in. And so the vast majority of our applications came in on day one and it's slowed down significantly. It's hard to say where we're going to be at. I would say just go ahead and apply now. There's no harm in applying early.
Okay.
So, yeah.
If you apply and then you decide you don't want to do that, you can.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
It's kind of like you said, some of the priority 1 through 6 based on specialty groups, and then priority window A through G. You'll close it after A and look at all those 1 through 6, or are you going to be going through all the window dates?
Yeah. So
then funding 1 and funding 2.
all right. No. Yeah. Good question. So the first window ends March 23rd, and we are going to look at everybody. And for one, if it's not all the spots, if we don't fill up the program in that first window, everyone gets in, no matter what priority. Priority 1, priority 6, they all get in.
Okay. It's not like last year approved but not funded. You will.
Right. Right. So everyone will get. I mean, there will be that last step of verifying enrollment eventually, but yeah. So let's say we have 40,000 spots. I don't know how many we have, and we have 39,000 applicants. They all get in. But let's say, but so then the second window begins, and we have 1,000 spots left. They have 3 weeks to apply. For 3 weeks, we'll collect applications, then we'll put them in order, and we'll let the top 1,000 in.
So someone from 6 in that priority window A won't not get it because someone from priority 2.
Exactly. We treat each window separately. Yeah.
So for planning purposes, what's the when will an applicant know? When will all applicants know whether or not their child was accepted?
Shortly after March 23rd.
Okay.
Yeah, so you will know shortly after March 23rd. Yeah. Yep.
And do you foresee any potential additional budgeting income to the program post March 23rd?
So that's going to be dependent on the legislator, the governor's office. Budgeting is outside of our team's hands, and so they've gotten a certain amount of money. And if they're like, especially if there's a little bit, just a few more people than we have money for, I'm sure they'll reach out to someone and be like, "Hey, can we get some money here or there to make sure we get everybody in?" But that's kind of out of our team's hands, out of ADE's hands. That's kind of a higher up question. So
do we not have any spots there?
no, it's not exactly. Yeah.
It's not first come, first served as far as like the priority 1 through 5, and when it gets to 6, it's going to be more you applied on the 3rd, you applied on the 5th, you applied on the 10th.
Yes, I believe so. I don't think that there's any other way that we can use to order those. But yeah,
It's not
Yeah.
just a random.
right.
Okay, do the other additional questions add weight to?
No.
Okay.
The other questions have no weight in this. Just, I mean, like the eligibility questions that say IDEA, are you the child of law enforcement? Those are the ones that have all the weight.
Okay.
Those are the ones that create the priority structure. Yeah. Any other questions about the application process? We can come back to. I'm sure we'll think of some more later, but I want to show you guys a few resources. Let's go first to. All right. Open a new tab. All right, let's go to DESE, D-E-S-E, D-E-S-E, there we go, .link /EFA. So this is DESE.link /EFA. This is the Education Freedom Accounts landing page for information. All right, so this is, if something changes, if we're making an announcement, if there's a new link, this is the first place we're gonna put it. The tabs here are what's of interest: information for families, information for private and micro schools, information for service providers, includes vendors, current EFA schools list, EFA vendors and service providers. If you wanna dig deeper into the EFA program, some of the requirements, some of the nuances of it, this is a great place to go. Let's click on information for families. One of the things that you will be most interested in, let's go down. Let's go, so this is how much money, this is the current year. So, oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so this is how much money you'll get next year. But let's go down to, keep going, keep going, keep going. I want to find eligible products. Those are the important lists. All right, so nope. Okay, so this is pretty important. There are 3 PDFs here. So this is a list of eligible products, a list of ineligible products, and then a list of reimbursable products. So this, I think, is for those who are new families, is going to be a good, like, general guideline, but it could change because we are reevaluating everything, making changes to try to improve the program, but it's not at least 90% going to be the same. Tuition, fees, uniforms, testing costs, and then most things that would be used in homeschooling, whether that's curriculum or school supplies, a printer, things like that. And so then I would encourage you to look at this list, the ineligible products list, and then there's a reimbursables list. Not every item can be reimbursed. The exception to that is this past year. We did, because of some issues in the program and the way it was working, we really wanted to make sure homeschool families could get what they needed, and the easiest way to do that was to make all eligible items reimbursable. And so we extended that to like later in the fall semester, and then we extended it all the way to December, and then we extended it to February, and then we extended it to the end of the school year, so that it ended up being all year long. If there's an eligible item, you could get reimbursed for it. The reason we originally had a separate list of reimbursable items is because we were trying to, one of our jobs as a team is to prevent fraud and other misuses of funds. And so we didn't want people, I won't give you guys any ideas, we didn't want people to buy something, get reimbursed for it through the program, and then return it and get their money back. You know, so we were mostly, she's like, that's a great idea. I'm just kidding. I know, right? And so, so it was mostly items that couldn't be returned. It was mostly certain services and things that people would need to be reimbursed for. But because of the limitations of the program this past year, we made everything reimbursable. That's going to go through June 30th. We're going to be reevaluating that probably tweaking it, how a little bit how it works this next year. And so this that document will be helpful, but it probably won't be the same for next year. We're not sure exactly what that will be. So I encourage you to explore this. Um, I want to look at one more website before we. Oh, that's not going to work. All right, yeah, we won't be able to sign into Class Wallet without an account. So I can just tell you that there are 3 ways currently of using the money inside the Class Wallet system. We won't be able to see it here. They're usually pretty. It's pretty easy to find inside the Class Wallet system. Um, the first way we already talked about is reimbursement. You spend the money out of your own pocket, and then you upload an invoice, and we pay you back. So you link your bank account to the Class Wallet account. You buy some curriculum, and then you upload your receipt. Now, the receipt is going to have to show very clearly what the item is. So if it's just some code 1235 ABC, like that's not going to help us. We got to know like this was some curriculum. This was the name of the book. The receipt or invoice is going to need to show that. And usually, invoices from shopping online are usually pretty good at that. If you're shopping from Amazon, that page is going to include like a picture of the item as well. That really helps. So we need to know what the item is. We need to know the total price, and we need to know. So that there's 4 things: what the item is, the total price, who you bought it from. We need to know where you spent the money. We need to know the date that you purchased it. So there needs to be a purchase date to show us that you did spend the money. It's not just someone giving you an invoice requesting payment. It's an invoice showing that you have paid for it. It has to be proof of payment. You submit the invoice showing those 4 things, and we give you your money back. It just goes straight from your child's EFA account into your bank account. The other way is direct pay. This also uses an invoice, but it's not a proof of purchase. It is an invoice requesting payment. So let's say you have a tutor. Um, you tutored with them 4 hours this past month at $40 an hour. Okay, you owe them $160. They put out an invoice that shows their name, their vendor name, like whatever name they have in our system. This is how much you owe from this student, and they give it to you, and then you're going to upload it onto the Class Wallet website, and then that money, instead of going back to you, is going to go to that vendor because they're also going to be in the website. So anyone who is accepting funds for the EFA program and is providing services, especially that includes interaction with a child, they have to be approved because we want to ensure quality and we want to ensure safety. The safety part of it is that their application requires a background check and fingerprinting. And that background check must include child maltreatment. We want to make sure that the people that are receiving money from the state for educating children are going to be safe. It also requires some kind of credentials or experience to show that they are qualified to teach what they're teaching. We're very loose on that. If you have a neighbor who's been playing piano for 20 years and you want them to teach your kid, they don't have a degree in music, they don't have a teacher's license, but they say, I've been playing for 20 years, I go to church with these kids, I want to teach them piano, like that's enough. Like there just has to be something. There has to be some reason why we're letting this person take money to educate your children. So the vendor applies, they get approved, and then they also will onboard into the Class Wallet system so that they can receive money through the Class Wallet system. So that's the second way to use your money. The third way is the marketplace. The marketplace is mostly managed by Class Wallet. It's a group of stores, mostly bigger stores that have online shopping carts where you can go into Class Wallet and you can click around and basically just go online shopping with your funds. School supplies, we have Best Buy, Staples, Office Depot, and then several other educational websites where you can look around and shop with your money. So those are the 3 ways to use your money. I don't think that will change much next year. I hope that within those that there will be change, that we're going to be improving those processes, making them more seamless, more user friendly. But I do believe that those will continue to be the three only ways to use your money.
So 3 questions.
Yes.
Um, so one person asked, if my child is already in a program but is in the process of becoming a first responder, do I need to put that or not worry about it right now since they're already in that program this year?
If they are already in the program, they are already top priority. And so if you add that you're a first responder, it's not going to hurt. It's not going to help.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our next question is, if we need to update something we put on our application, will it affect the application where it sits in the queue?
Yes. In fact, there are a handful of families that have been on the wait list for the current school year. As we've cleared out space, some students have gone back to homeschool, have gone back to public school. We have added families to the program. They are going to want to go in. There's probably 100 of those or less. They're going to want to go back into their application and change that question where it says, um, are you a current participant? They're going to want to change that to yes, add their class wallet ID, and then that will change their prioritization of the program. So if you're like, oh, I forgot to say that they're the child of a veteran, you can go back in and change that, and it will affect your prioritization when we do that on March 23rd.
You can also pull that person back if they have a minor update, let's say to a name or perhaps something like, because it's a new submission date.
Right.
Is the priority on submission date or update?
I think it's submission date, because I think once it's submitted, that date doesn't change. So if you go in and update it, I don't think it's going to put you at the back of the queue.
Okay. My question is, are they considering making laptops, tablets reimbursable for sales like
Um,
Black Friday?
we are considering a lot of things,
Okay.
especially with reimbursement. It's worked pretty well this year to have universal reimbursement. I don't know if we can continue to do that. Technically, in the law right now, we have to go by this limited list of reimbursements, but it was kind of a special situation this past year. We're not exactly sure how we're going to go with that now because of the fraud issue. We want to make sure that, especially items that are returnable, that we want to limit reimbursement because we want to make sure that we're giving everyone a chance to get what they need, and there are other ways to get laptops and printers and things like that within the system without reimbursement. There are definitely better deals if you're getting a Black Friday deal, for sure. And so we understand that, and that is a consideration that we're thinking of. Um, but we're not. It's all still to be determined. We're talking about it, and also there are some changes to the law that are currently being processed and talked about, and so the law itself is going to have some minor changes this next year as well. We have to factor all of that in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have more questions here, but I don't want to interrupt.
Any other questions here?
As far as music lessons and things like that, that is reimbursed. But what about like an instrument that you want to play violin or trumpet?
Yeah. So musical instruments are currently on the list of ineligible items. That is something that we're discussing, and I think part of the reason for that is that a student only has a certain number of funds to go and purchase a violin that might be $1,000 or a few $100s. But it's something we're definitely discussing. It's still not ruled out, but the lessons themselves are definitely covered. Um, Even if you go to a public school, you're usually paying out of your own pocket to rent a musical instrument. But we are talking about. We're considering it. It could change, but I'm not sure. Yeah, good question.
How about dual enrollment? Is that covered while your kids are in high school?
Yes, yes. So like you're if you do dual enrollment and you're paying for classes at the university or college, that's all eligible. Yeah.
Even though
Yeah, if it's like even if it's online, like that would still count. So we consider all accredited colleges and universities to automatically be an approved vendor in our program because they kind of have their own credentials that they've already passed, that they've already gone through. And so if you have a student that's taking classes online at, Liberty University or some other college or university, then that's always going to be reimbursable. Yeah.
I still have some questions I wanted regarding Amazon. So Amazon's not in the marketplace, but you can do reimbursement for that. if you're doing it
Yes.
for curriculum.
Yes, if you're doing it for curriculum, and currently right now, if you're doing it for any eligible item, glue sticks, you can get reimbursed. Computer, you can get reimbursed. And we'll see what that looks like next year. But and also, so the marketplace right now is kind of limited because ClassWallet hasn't been doing this for that many years, and so they have to build the relationship with the vendor. They have to form a contractual relationship, and they're looking for more people to partner with. They're looking for more companies to join the marketplace, but it takes time. And so a lot of people have said, "Hey, we'd love to have Walmart or Amazon in the Class Wallet marketplace," and that has been heard by them. And so whether or not they can do that, they know that families want the marketplace to be expanded. Yeah, great question. Yes.
So the reimbursement, is there dates? So like I normally shop during the summer for all of my books for most of the year.
Yeah.
Does it go back to summer? What dates is that?
Okay, so the important date that you need to know is July 1st. So that is the change in the fiscal year for the Department of Education. July 1st is a new fiscal year. So anything purchased before July 1st must be submitted for reimbursement before July 1st.
For the previous year.
Yes, yeah. So if you bought it before July 1st, you cannot submit it on or after July 1st. So you got to get everything done for the previous year. But then once you buy something on July 1st, you can submit for reimbursement afterwards.
There's some questions here.
Okay.
If there's a purchase for an eligible item or potentially eligible item
Yeah.
over the amount that they have, can they pay partial and pay the rest out of their own pocket?
For reimbursement?
Yes.
Yes. So for reimbursement, we do allow that if the amount left in their funds doesn't match it. So we're not going, if you have enough money, we're not going to let you say, hey, I only want to put $500 towards this. But if let's say you only have $500 and you buy something for $600, you can request reimbursement for just what's left in your account.
Okay. Can classes, camps, somewhere at institutions like museums, science centers being reimbursed, do those institutions still need to be registered as vendors? And what's the process for out-of-state organizations?
All right. So let's start with that. Huh?
Like break down if you want.
Well, okay. Well, let's start with out-of-state organizations. Even though the program is restricted to Arkansas students, when it comes to vendors, it doesn't matter what state the vendor is from or country. They can be from anywhere. They're providing educational services or products. That doesn't matter. For the first part of that, it's going to be really dependent on the situation. For one, field trips are not covered. Field trips in any way are not an eligible expense. So if you have if you're going to a museum or if you're and one reason for that is the definition of a field trip is so subjective. We've had parents take their kids to Florida, call it a field trip, and try to be reimbursed. Um, you know, I'm sure they learned something. Like they might have collected some seashells or something, but like because a field trip expenses are so subjective and hard to define, field trips just aren't covered. So that's going to include entry into a museum or something like that. If there is any service provided that includes interaction with a child, that service provider has to apply to be approved.
Okay, last question here, I'll let it go back to the audience.
Okay.
How soon after an application approval can you use the money on class waters? Or do you have to wait after you submit your NOI to get approved to use class water?
Yes, that's a great question. So the current applications are for the 25-26 school year. And so people who are applying now aren't going to be entering the program until August. There might be some onboarding that starts in July, but the first funding date when you get money in your accounts, all families, homeschool, private, are going to get paid at the same time. But at least that's how we've been doing it. I don't know if we're going to change that. But there's going to be a date in August. It's usually a week or two after most private schools have started, because we want to give private schools time to verify which students showed up. So they can verify, hey, this student is here, they are in a seat, before we give money to that kid. So what's going to happen is, let's say March 23rd comes around, you get approved, you get an email saying, congratulations, you were approved for the EFA program. Sometime in June, July, or August, you're going to fill out an NOI, notice of intent to homeschool. We're going to check it. We're going to check you off and be like, all right, this person is verified as a homeschool student. Then you can get onboarded in the class wallet, probably all around the same time in July or August. And then that first funding date, sometime mid-August, is going to come, and you're going to get about $1,700 in your EFA account in the class wallet system. Yeah, good. Any other questions here? Yes. Okay.
Sounds like I'm really new to this, so we just moved to Arkansas. So do you guys distribute the funds like kind of incrementally throughout the school year?
Yes. Yes, 4 times a year. So once a quarter. So August. The second one is usually in like October. For third quarter, it's usually, there's a lot of kids moving schools over winter break, so we have a little bit extra time. Usually we don't fund until February for the third quarter, and then usually sometime in like April, maybe into March, April for the fourth quarter.
Because I was kind of confused, like if there's a child that ends up, say, like moving out of state or going back to public school, how does that work with the funds? Are they just, you have to go into the application and then say like, hey, this has changed, and then the funds stop, or is there anything that like kind of is retro changed?
Yeah. So the way it'll be, if a student goes back to public school, they're signing an affidavit when they fill out the application that says that they're going to let us know if they're leaving homeschool or private school. And so when they leave, they have to let us know, and then we are going to, if they have reimbursements that are things that they bought while they were in the program, we'll still process those. But once they have gone to public school, they're no longer allowed to make purchases with their EFA account, because they're no longer eligible to participate in our program. And so we'll withdraw them from the program, and then they're still eligible to come back in a later year if they want to. Does that answer your question? Okay, great. Yes.
So I'm also really into this, just curious, for those students, individuals that don't make it, don't get into the program, do you know if there's any other like federal resource for them to, I'm not saying like financial aid, but like other like discounts or things that federal
Yeah.
level, or this is all?
Not that I know of, especially, yeah, not on the federal level. There are 2 other big scholarships that are geared more for private school families. There's ACE and PIAC, and those, I think both of those are income based, and so families can qualify for those for private school. But we don't manage those. Those are separate. Yeah.
Another question.
Yeah.
If we homeschool, like that's our primary, but consider doing like Lifeway, like it's a Christian school they have,
Hmm.
you could do part-time.
Yeah.
If we could get them in like for 3 classes a semester or something there, could I do both? And how would I do it on there?
Absolutely. So you can, as long as you're not considered a full-time public school student, you're eligible for the program.
Okay.
Okay, so if you're doing partially at home, partially online, like that's not a problem. So um, I'm not too familiar with the Lifeway courses. If they are pre-recorded videos or curriculum, then they're automatically eligible. You can get
It's an
reimbursed.
in-person school.
It's an in-person school. Okay, so then they're going to need. Is it?
It does go on the EFA. I have friends that
Okay. Okay. Great. Yeah. Yeah. So you can do that. And what you would do is you wouldn't be paying like a full-time tuition there. So they would just invoice you for the time that for whatever expenses you incur by attending their school, and then you can upload that invoice on Class Wallet in the direct pay section and pay the school that way.
So if I applied, would I still apply as homeschool?
Probably if you're not full time at that school, then you'd probably still be considered a homeschool student. Right now, though, it wouldn't make a huge difference. You're still getting the same amount of money. You're still spending it in the same way. Um, do you know, is Lifeway, are they considered a full-time accredited private school, or are they more like, are they more of a micro school, like a homeschool
Oh,
private school?
probably a private school.
Okay.
They're big.
Okay.
But like most private schools, you have to apply like now.
Okay. Click on here. Go to, is this the main page? Yeah. Okay. Go up, scroll up to the top, and then let's click on current EFA school list. Okay. Scroll down. Let's see if Lifeway is on there. Yeah. There we go. Okay. So I'm not sure what you would be considered. I think I would guess you'd be considered more of a homeschool student since you're not. This school is not providing all the entirety of your education.
Right.
You're just using them to supplement. You'd still be considered a homeschool student.
So I guess right now they would only be asking for like the fee to apply or whatever, and then you don't pay until later.
Yeah, yeah. So you'd probably have to pay that out of pocket, the fee to apply, and then once you start paying tuition next year, um, you can either get reimbursed for that or you can upload an invoice from them and pay them directly.
Okay.
Yep.
I have another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
The testing, we've never done testing because we've
Okay.
been the whole time.
Yeah.
So I saw there's like a list
Yes.
of different tests.
Let's look at that. Information for families. All right, let's scroll down here. Right here. Approved list of tests. All right, so there's a lot. No, what all of these have in common is that they're standardized. They're national norm reference tests, and what that means is the results are compared against other students across the United States. And so, what that looks like practically is that you get a percentile score. That way, we can compare a student who took, um, you know, the NWEA with the Iowa tests because they're both going to be percentile. This student was the 60th percentile in math and the 48th percentile in reading. And this other student took a different test, but they were the 70th percentile and the 60th percentile. Like so, um, you can choose any of these. You can do the research yourself, figure out which one is best for your student, and then you only have to test them in math and language arts.
And then so I had heard that they actually are just wanting to see every year that there's growth. Are they like, is that really true?
Yes, yes. So the main, well, to tell you the truth, the main reason we do it is because the law tells us we have to. We don't have a plan for specifically how we're going to evaluate it. And for the most part, Arkansas has always been very hands off with homeschool students. The only requirement in Arkansas for homeschool families is that you fill out an NOI. And then after that, you could be the worst teacher ever, and they're not going to do anything. The difference is if you are receiving funds, they might care a little bit more. Um, they're not going to come after you for low test scores. No one has the time for that. I think if we were to see a student that was in the program for 5 years and never grew, never learned anything, we'd be like, is this parent even teaching them? Like if you're teaching your kid and they're growing, like if they're learning things, like there's nothing to worry about. But if you just let them play video games all day long, we'll see it in 5 years and we'll start wondering. Like the first step is we scratch our heads. And then a year later, the first step is like, wait a second, they still haven't learned. They're still in the 10th percentile and everything. They have, so we don't have anything in place where we're like, we have a system to figure out who's doing bad. If that makes sense. We have to do this mostly for just data keeping, and because the legislator wants there to be some degree of accountability for the funds that they're giving to families.
Go ahead, please.
Sorry, I have lots of questions. Do you foresee that in the future that the testing will be for everyone, whether or not they take the funds?
That is a much bigger question than I can answer. I don't think so. I believe that Arkansas is going to continue to um, be mostly hands off with homeschool families. Um, that's a much more political question than I'm equipped to answer. I don't think so. I don't know if it's not impossible, but I don't know.
The math and language arts makes me feel less concerned
Yeah.
because it's so hard for history or whatever to know
Right.
what to expect.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're receiving the funds, you're saying that you have to choose to do one of those types of testing that's listed on the.
Yes. And so that's like the only additional requirement put on homeschool families who are participating in our program. The way you teach your kid doesn't have to change at all. We don't have any requirements on the way you educate your child, except the only thing that the program adds is the testing requirement. And so you can choose any of them, and you can administer it at home. Like you can purchase it online, administer it yourself. I mean, depending on the what the test itself says, the test will give you instructions for how it's supposed to be administered. If you have a kid with special needs, usually their test will have accommodations for kids with special needs in the way that you administer it to them. And so then at the end of the school year, usually I'm not sure when it's going to be up this year, but there's going to be a place to submit those scores online. You'll say, for Jimmy, he was 40th percentile in math, 55th percentile in reading, and then there's likely going to be a place where you can upload a screenshot of the results, just to go.
End of the year.
At the end of the year, yeah. Right. So people who are applying now aren't going to have to do this testing until next April or May if they don't want to. So.
Okay, we'll get to some questions here.
Okay.
So extracurricular programs, reimbursements. It seems like there is a question about the frequency requirements for those extracurriculars. 2 days
yes.
versus 3 days a week.
Yes.
Particularly, 2 days a week for a vendor is covered question. Citing a local gymnast who told us 3 days a week was a requirement, but we weren't too sure there was a misunderstanding or not. Can you help us with that?
All right. Yes. So those of you who aren't familiar, we created a general rule around extracurricular activities because the law requires that a substantial amount of funds be spent on core subjects. We don't want a homeschool family to just use all the money on gymnastics. They just put them in gymnastics every day, and that's $7,000 a year. So we said that we would do 2 times a week. That's an extracurricular activity. That's a PE class. Or same, yes, same thing for fine arts, for piano lessons, for dance. It's going to be 2 times per week. And so if you're specifically paying per session, we'll pay for up to 2. Some places are just going to have a general membership that say, hey, we have classes, you pay $60 and you can come attend as many classes as you want. Like that's okay. as long as it's not like specifically for 3 or 4 classes a week.
One person said they applied last year and received eligible status,
Okay, yeah,
but never received funding.
yes,
Reapplied through fax, but there was no request for IEP, but had to upload age and residency.
yes.
Can you share what might be going on there?
Okay, so what's going on there? First of all, the eligible status means that they're on the wait list. So last year they had a complete application. They were eligible for the program, but there weren't enough spots left for them. So they got so they were never actually enrolled in the EFA program. People who are on the wait list will be prioritized. They're in that top tier. So there's people who are already in the program, and then below that are people who applied but didn't get in. They had a complete application but didn't get in. We're going to match that based off of name and date of birth. I sent that list to fax yesterday, I think, of all the people who applied last year were eligible. Well, there are other statuses as well. Eligible is probably the biggest one. Um, they applied, they had a complete application, but they didn't actually get into the program. And so they have your name. If that's you, they have your name, they have your child's name and date of birth. They're going to be matching that, and they're going to give you priority for approval.
And would the IEP uploads from that year still roll over for this next fiscal year?
So in the current application, because these eligibility categories are not required to get into the program, we're streamlining the approval process by not requiring any documentation for those eligibility categories.
Okay.
So you don't have to upload anything. We're not going to look at anything. We're going to have, tens and tens of thousands of applications. We can't look at that many documents this time around.
Another question, can you speak a little bit regarding books, whether or not it's covered for the program, and if so, types of books, and like where are the books are right now?
All books, all books. Like, this is education. We love books. If there are words on paper, it's eligible. And so I don't know of, for reimbursement too. Yeah, I don't know of a single book that we've rejected. It's possible that could get clarified next year. Right now, we're considering all books in the curriculum category, so which would make them reimbursable forever. It's possible we'll change that policy, but as of right now, I think we all love books, and I think we're going to keep approving them.
Okay. Another question here, are there any alternative ways to purchase classes on OutSchool? Some parents have had
Yeah.
difficulties with that.
Yeah.
She can email you later if that would be better, but can you speak about that?
So OutSchool is a specific vendor in the class wallet system, one of like 600 and something. I have happened to talk to a couple of parents about OutSchool. They're specifically in the OutSchool website. You can, I think, purchase something called a passport and then use it to purchase classes. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but I have reached out to Class Wallet, and Class Wallet currently does not have the necessary functionality for the purpose of purchasing the passports within the OutSchool system. I
Subscription based.
I don't know much about it. That's about the extent that I know.
On that
Yes.
topic, can you get it, if you got your passport, like, can you submit that as a reimbursable, or so you take it, or how does that? Is anybody?
Yeah. So I'm not super familiar with OutSchool system. So OutSchool has basically a bunch of tutors that you can choose from, or class, and I guess so. I know because OutSchool is an approved vendor, an approved service provider, then anyone under them would also automatically be approved. So if you're using a vendor through OutSchool, you can be reimbursed for that, or you can use direct pay, I think. I haven't looked through OutSchool on the marketplace inside Class Wallet to see exactly how it functions. within that system. So I probably can't speak too detailed about it, but I know you can at least do reimbursement. So, yeah. Great question. What else?
Curriculum purchase after July 1st.
Yeah.
Can be submitted for reimbursement, since, users are not able to use classroom until August.
It can be submitted for reimbursement, but just not immediately. You'll have to wait until you have money in your account.
Okay.
So if you purchase it July 1st, you get money August 15th, you can submit for reimbursement for that earlier purchase. Now, if you bought it June 30th, then you can't be reimbursed for it
You're right.
because of the fiscal year. Yep. So July 1st or later, we have people even now in March submitting for reimbursement for things that they purchased last July, and that works. So, yeah. Anyone else?
I have more, but I don't want to you guys.
Okay.
Is a child who attends public school part-time and homeschool part-time eligible?
Yes. So as long as they are not considered fully enrolled in a public school.
What's the full FTE for that? The full-time enrollment version?
I don't know. I'm not sure, but I know that you can take a few classes in it.
Right.
Doesn't matter. I don't know how many you're allowed to take.
I think most of it are usually 2 hours, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question, though. But we have a lot of students who are taking advantage of that. Homeschool students have a lot of rights in Arkansas as far as using public school resources. So, for example, if you have a special needs student, you can get testing at a public school. You can also participate in sports in public schools. You can take a couple of classes at public school, and you're still going to be considered a homeschool student, and it won't affect your eligibility in the program. Yes.
That is something that begins in sixth grade level. Is that correct in Arkansas? Or is there
Man.
really like a parameter for that?
Yeah.
What begins at 6th grade?
To be able to do like dual courses between like homeschool and public
I
school.
would, my understanding is K-12. But I need to double check that, but I would lean more side of K-12. It's a bit more difficult at the elementary level because they're broken up more into stations.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they might do 1 hour of English here, writing, reading, and then math, and then go back to writing, which reading, writing,
Yeah.
very neurotic. So I heard 2 hours versus 2 courses. That's why you have a class by class breakdown for grade 6 upward to grade 12.
So how would you go about even finding that out? Is it just different for district to district?
I would talk to your district. That's probably the best place because you're going to have to go to them anyway to talk about getting your kid enrolled in a class or two to see what they offer to homeschool families.
I think Fayetteville does in particular. I'm not sure about Fayetteville, but I think one of them do have available.
Yeah, great.
All right. Let's see here. So, Thrive Academics Performance Series is $25 all grades. Can do it from home anytime. Work great. There's more or less a feedback I know right ahead here.
Okay.
So if I have a special needs student, I know that there's a portfolio instead of testing. Likely due to nature of the disability, like what is needed for those
Okay.
who do not necessarily fit that parameters for that measure.
That's a great question. Let's talk about special needs students and testing. Most students who have an IDEA are going to be required to test. Just take a normal standardized test, and their IDEA will be taken into consideration. We're not gonna look at low test scores and kick people out of the program. Um, they can also receive accommodations for testing. So if they need, if their IDEA, for example, if a therapist or a doctor or a teacher would recommend a certain accommodation for that student, they can get that accommodation even if testing at home. Now, for those with severe special needs, and we're talking about to the point where they basically can't test. Their special needs enough, and things like that. Yeah, yeah. Then they can submit a portfolio instead. And so what this portfolio looks like, we haven't um, spelled it out exactly because we want it to be up to the parent. The requirement is just that progress is shown. So the parent is, for example, maybe the student did some projects or something during the year, worked on certain skills. So any kind of documentation showing what skills were worked on. We don't have a specific formula because we know the parents don't have a specific formula, especially when it comes to special needs students. And so anything that just shows, like, I've been working with my kid and my kid has been learning things, like, that's the requirement. It's very general, it's very vague. We just want to be able to have something to show, like, this kid is learning something. This student is seeking growth in these areas. These are the students' growth points this year. These are the students' weak points this year. It can be anything that shows that.
Can you talk to us about the particular testing requirements regarding reading, math? You can take a test vendor, but test vendors have a lot of tests.
Yeah, so those are the test list. It shows specific tests. So if we look at that again. Yeah, there we go. So these are specific tests. So this is like some of these are vendors. For example, like if you take the Iowa test, it shows exactly what form. You can choose like Form E, and I think Form E, for example, has math and language arts.
So for like the math test, which I'm very familiar
Yeah,
with, there's a lot of small tests based off the age level.
yeah,
Like laryngification, quantity, discrimination, especially at the early elementary levels.
yeah.
Do you have to go through all those tests, or can you just like
Is map up here?
Yeah, right. Indefinite measure.
No, okay, yeah, yeah. So, oh, yeah, there it is. So yeah, you choose the one that fits your student. As long as you're covering math and language arts, and they have a percentile score. They have to have. It has to be nationally norm referenced so that you get percentile score compared with other testers across the U.S. Then it's approved. Yeah.
It's getting to 3:30 right now. I'd like to take some of these questions here as well, but I know you guys have your own schedules as well. By the way, I haven't introduced myself. My name is Greg. I'm the store owner here. I have a school education background, both in special ed and public school administration in Alaska. Found the store for sale in North Little Rock, bought it, and brought it up here. We love it. I think it's great. We enjoy it. Being in the homeschool community, like Austin said, anything here is reimbursable pretty much. We are going to have a live online store pretty soon. It should have a very easy way to navigate each of our curriculums, offering supplements, literature as well, by age level, subject, etc. So be on the lookout for that. Should be available for 1 to 2 weeks. We are a approved vendor with the EFA program, and after 2 months, we finally got class wallet approval. We just had to get that integrated with our new Shopify page, which will again go live about 1 to 2 weeks. We got an eBay store open, but yeah, please check it out. Yeah. Thank you.
Great.
But anyways, Austin, I'm going to keep asking questions.
Yeah, I'm good to keep going.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Yes. Yes.
I don't really know much about the IDEA. When you say that, is it really falling under like more category of like what you talked about, like nonverbal, like
It's
that kind of disability?
it's
or
very broad.
Dyslexia. Like,
Yes. Yes. We're talking about dyslexia. We're talking about ADHD. All those qualify as special needs, and so in
testing, is that right?
individuals with I forget what exactly it stands for, but it's just a standard of
Some type of.
yeah, of some kind of disability. Yeah, so that it can be nonverbal, it can be something really extreme, it can also just be
Right.
light ADD, you know? And so if a child has been diagnosed with any of those, then they qualify for in the test it asks, have you been diagnosed with a special need, IDA, any of those count. Any of those would count as a yes for that.
That's what I was also trying to understand, as in like studying this a little bit before today, is the testing that's here doesn't really do any testing for that. It's not like
Right.
in or out whether they have like ADD.
Exactly.
This is more just like to see kind of like where they're at.
Yes.
And their coursework progress, right?
That's correct.
So you have to have like totally separate testing to say like, yes, I have a diagnosis for my child.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Good question.
So,
And so for those who can't hear, who are on the stream, she was asking about this testing and about it being separate from IDEA testing. Yeah, this has nothing to do with testing for dyslexia or ADD or anything like that. This is just math, language arts. That's what needs to be tested here. You can use your funds to test for special needs. You can get dyslexia testing or whatever else you need and get reimbursed for it. Yeah.
And you said that that was also something that you might be able to access through the school district?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So reach out to your district and ask them what they can offer you. So yeah.
so, just to clarify on the IDA, students, insert underneath IDA have generally an IEP, and they have an eligibility report that qualifies them to receive, services through their IEP. Sometimes the services can be provided by home, sometimes they can be provided on site at the school. There are generally 12 to 13 categories, depending on what state, they kind of vary just a little bit, but basically the same. But there is a process on how students can be eligible, and if a parents can always request evaluation at no expense to that parent. And then then the school is obligated to respond. But they're not, they, and then they will investigate and do a pre-referral process. And again, that varies between each school. The other side of that coin is, just because you have a disability doesn't mean you're qualified. It really depends on several key points and factors. There are Section 504, which is kind of the mid-ground between general education and special education. Special education is the umbrella of IDEA. Section 504 is underneath civil rights, and that's more of a non-funded process, but the schools are obligated to follow because they are federally funded. I can share more about it later just because of my background, but there is a process at no expense to you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Other questions?
Could you cover, this is an odd question, but, I'd be interested in if you could show me where to apply as a vendor and what, the, like,
Yes.
needs and requirements are.
Let's go back.
You need a,
So we're back to the DESI website, desi.link/EFA. Let's go to information for service providers. Application for new EFA service providers and vendors. You click there and apply there. Yep.
and then what's the requirements for,
So for
what do I need to put?
background check, fingerprinting, and then just something showing that you're qualified to provide your service. That's a degree, experience, credentials, anything like that.
Service or
Service.
okay.
Yeah, so vendors don't really, you just have the products. You don't have to show any kind of that you have credentials because you're not providing a service that requires a skill.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah.
And then, would teachers pay teachers be on the vendor list or not as a resource?
I don't think that they are currently in our system.
And be reimbursed.
Yes, yes, you could be reimbursed for teachers pay teachers.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, depending on what I know, it's mostly or entirely educational items. It's possible that there would be items on there that we would consider less educational.
Right,
That so as long as it's an eligible item, we would reimburse it.
okay.
Yeah, um, and that's for this school year. Next school year, we might be reverting to that reimbursables list, where you can only be reimbursed for certain things. And so for that, you would have to check the item to make sure not only is it eligible, but it's also on the reimbursables list. So we'll have to wait and see
25, 26.
25, 26 what is going to be reimbursable and what won't be.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would make that? What would make you guys decide not to have teacher pictures be reimbursable or an item not be reimbursable?
Okay.
Period.
Yeah, that's great. So it's mostly the fraud reason. So yeah. So there are a lot of things that you really need to get reimbursed because you have to pay beforehand. Like a lot of services, like you want to get started now, so you pay your tutor and then you get reimbursed. If the tutor is waiting for the whole system to process the payment and they don't want to teach your kid until they get paid, you might be waiting longer than you want to start your education. So that's one reason we allow reimbursement for things like that. For services, most services can be reimbursed. Um, the and then on top of that, curriculum, because we know, especially at the beginning of a school year, like families need to buy reimbursement. We don't want them to wait until August 15th to start looking at curriculum and considering it. I throw August 15th out there just as a placeholder. That's not necessarily the date that we're going to fund, um, but for other things like computers, like we want to. We've given families other ways of purchasing those products, and they don't have as many options as we would like. But we also want to try to prevent waste and fraud.
Since teacher pay teacher really is for me, a lot of the curriculum on it.
Yeah. So curriculum then on teachers, pay teachers would be reimbursable for sure. Yep. Great.
There seems to be some confusion between reading and language arts in terms of testing requirements for students with the
Yeah.
program. I know language arts is often seen as umbrella to reading and writing,
Yeah.
but there are tests out there that separate those two particular subject areas, such as
Yeah.
math.
Okay. Yeah, and so I think for those situations in which it's important to distinguish, I think either would be okay. I think either reading or language arts would be fine.
Okay.
Yep.
If a child, I might know the answer to this one. If a child's in speech, occupational physical therapy, waiting to be tested for learning disabilities, is that considered a disability for IDEA, or do we have to wait until she has a diagnosis?
There.
If
So
if they have an IEP or are underneath IDA through the speech occupation POT, I would say yes.
yeah. If they already have an IEP, then it's a yes already. Um,
But you can receive those intervention services prior to being diagnosed.
yeah. So we count IEPs as official documentation of having special needs. Um, I would say though, if you don't have an IEP and you have an undiagnosed special needs, then I would say the current answer would be no until it gets diagnosed, until there is some kind of official. Thanks for coming. Until there is something official saying the student has a specific IDEA, I think the answer on the application is going to be no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Families switching from homeschool to private school halfway through the year.
No problem.
No
We
problem.
we have a lot of people doing that. They're switching from homeschool to private school to homeschool. Right now, it's all kind of the same category. Now, the way to facilitate that is you have to email us
Okay.
because we have to change our data. We have to change it in the system so that we know who's attached to what school.
So for an application question, we can apply right now, but we don't have to decide right away if we want to participate.
That's correct. That's correct. And what I would say is if you choose not to participate, it's really helpful if you let us know. Otherwise, because if we don't know, then that's taking up a spot for another kid. And so the earlier we know that you're not going to participate, the earlier we can reach out to another family and say, hey, a spot opened up and we want to give it to you.
Sports PE equipment, reimbursable?
No.
No.
No. When it comes to extracurriculars, what we are currently funding is the lessons, the instruction, but not the equipment.
Okay. Let's see. Educational apps, ABC Mouse, Zookeeper, Khan Academy, which I think Khan's mostly free, but I'm not
Yes.
some new features.
Yes. No. I know most of those would just be considered products. If in the off chance there's some out there that include live courses, those would have to be approved. Like if it's through a specific um, online school or something that has an app and you're having live courses with a live teacher, those need to be an approved service provider. If it's all pre-recorded, pre-made lessons, then that's eligible.
Subscription-based educational apps,
Yeah.
are they approved?
Yes.
I have one question back on the extracurriculars. Music, art, PE, 2 times a week. Is it like 2 times a week for something PE, 2 times a week for music, or can you do one music, one sport?
You can do so. It's more of a rule of thumb.
Okay.
It is two each with a caveat. So you can do 2 times a week of some kind of sports lessons like dance or like soccer or dance, like not a team but an actual lesson, and then 2 times a week of like piano lessons.
Okay.
However, the caveat is that the law does require that a substantial amount of funds be spent on core subjects. So if that's taking up like 70% of your funds, it's going to be a red flag to us. We're going to be like, hey, like you can't spend this much just on extracurriculars. Like we have to show that you're spending the money on math, science, reading, social studies. So
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
3D printer,
Yes, up to $500.
up to $500 for a 3D printer. Okay.
Yes, and that's this year. That's this year.
This year.
We are reevaluating everything and changing things for next year.
Will
I
that list be
mm, not sure. Not sure. Now, what I do believe we're going to allow 3D printers,
known?
but our price limits might be changing next year. I'll just go ahead and tell you what I think we're going to do, and then if that's not what we end up doing, know that this comes with a caveat. Is I think what we're going to have is just a $1,000 limit for all technology per year, but with complete freedom within that $1,000.
Umbrella. Okay.
Yeah, just how you spend that money on technology, computer, printer, tablets, 3D printer is up to you. But it's $1,000 total for all technology. So I think we're leaning towards something like that.
And first, we'll probably define technology because that could be a calculator. It could be
Right, exactly. So I think we probably wouldn't include the calculator. We'd probably
I just
come up with a list. Yeah.
all right. Micro schools registered as a nonprofit. Can they apply as a district?
Yes, we have. Okay.
I know there's a new
We
phrase.
want them to apply as a micro school, and here's why. If you go up, so micro schools are a new category, not a new thing, but a new category. Previously, micro schools were just in the service provider category. Now we're going to be treating micro schools separately because they have an enrollment list, they have a roster, they have tuition, and so really, even though they're in some ways not the same as a private school, they function very similarly to a private school. So we're going to be treating them very similarly to a private school. And what that's going to do is we're going to let micro schools help manage their roster of students. So inside of Class Wallet, we have students attached to the school they're attending. And currently, that's the way it works for private schools, but not micro schools. Micro schools are just like a service provider. There's no attachment between the student and the school inside of Class Wallet for micro schools. But next year, we plan on having that. So the micro school is going to functionally be a private school inside of Class Wallet with students and tuition and everything like that, if that makes sense. So we do want micro schools to apply as a micro school.
Okay.
Yeah.
And VR headsets?
I know a lot of people have asked, and we have talked. We've had meetings specifically about VR headsets, and I think a lot of people who are listening are yelling yes, yes, or no, no, and we landed on yes because even though VR headsets are very often used for gaming, which is not what we want them to be used. We don't want EFA funds to be used for that. There are unique educational experiences that can be had with VR headsets that cannot be had with any other piece of technology. Yeah, and so there are like computers can be used for gaming, but also if you want to do an online school, you can't do it without a computer, and so that's why we allow computers. We actually have a vendor in the marketplace right now that sells VR headsets because they sell virtual field trips, where you can put on a VR headset and then go look around the museum. And we cover virtual field trips. I know we don't cover field trips. We do cover virtual field trips because it's more objectively priced. A field trip is more subjective. A virtual field trip has a set price, and you know exactly what you're getting. It's a contained unit. And so, I mean, I don't remember all of them, but they are really cool things where you can put on a VR headset and go look around the museum. You can go look around the Oval Office and learn about things that you can't do in almost any other way. And so unless nothing is in stone for next year yet, but as of right now, we are going to be approving VR headsets.
One question for myself, my own personal question. Are there any stipulations regarding family members providing services to students and who are potentially paired with their own children in terms of single line separations? Like we have a mother, they have a college level writing class. They have a daughter or son who is at that level. And then that daughter, of course, will definitely be taught by her mother, potentially.
Yeah.
How does that work in the eyes of the EFA?
Absolutely. We've had a lot of discussions about this, and because we've run into it. We've experienced parents doing this, and I think so. The general rule of thumb is that you can't get paid for teaching your own kids. Generally, however, we also recognize that there would be exceptions. The obvious one would be if a parent is a private school teacher and their kid happens to be in their classroom. Like, there's no way in which they're not going to get paid for teaching their own student in that situation. That's fine. It gets a little bit when it's in a group setting like that, and they're paying a fee to an organization to the class, then we're okay with that. If there's a fee being paid directly one-on-one to the parent, I think as of right now, we would lean towards no. We need to delineate some of these things a little bit more clearly. And we are having these discussions because these are real life examples of things that we were having to deal with. But where that line is between paying for a group class that your parent happens to teach or directly paying your parent to teach you. Like, for one, like one-on-one tutoring, you'll never get paid to one-on-one tutor your own child. That's just called homeschooling your kid. and, and and so there is a line in there somewhere. We need to figure out where it is and make it a little bit clearer before next year. Great question.
All right, online piano lessons. Would that be reimbursable?
A lot of online piano lessons or music lessons in general. Yeah, they're not specifically with a live instructor, and so those would all be eligible products, and they would be reimbursable. They are on the reimbursable list. If it's live, though, if there's a live teacher on the other end of the internet,
Versus synchronous.
they would need to be a service provider. Yeah.
And sometimes those synchronous, or the they have discounts for family memberships.
Yeah.
Do you provide reimbursements for family memberships for online lessons, whether it be art, music?
So here's
It could be cheaper.
right. It would be cheaper, and what the easy answer is, if you have multiple kids who are in the EFA program, then yes, we have reimbursed for that. Let's say you have two kids, though. One is in the EFA program and one isn't, and you purchase the family membership instead of the single membership. In a situation like that, it's harder to justify making the whole thing eligible. You'd probably want to contact us beforehand, before you bought it, so that we could give you a better answer. I don't think we've discussed that thoroughly to have an exact answer for that situation. If you have at least two EFA kids and you purchase the family membership, I don't think it's ever going to be a problem. If you only have one, though, we would have to talk about it.
I have a question.
Yes.
Kind of like that. There's like we do like read aloud or read Bible.
Mhm.
But it's like an online. I mean, I don't know. It is kind of like a membership, but they take like a book and then they kind of make a little curriculum out of the book.
Okay, yeah.
I tried looking for it on there and I can't find it.
I mean, that sounds like a great educational resource. I don't see a reason why that wouldn't be
So I
eligible.
just have to like submit a receipt or something. Kind of.
Yeah, let me think. So you're asking if it would be reimbursable, not just if it would be eligible.
Well, or either way, I couldn't find them on the list. So
Right. So because if it's not on the list, the only way to get it would be through reimbursement. Like it definitely would be now. If it's not on the reimbursables list, though, I would say it would fall under the online course fee. I think it could be considered an online course, especially if it comes with curriculum, and that is on the reimbursables list.
Okay.
So yeah, any kind of online courses are reimbursable, and just categorize it as that. Describe it. Let us know, like briefly, in what way it is an online course. When you submit your reimbursement request, there's a place to put in a description of what it is. Just let us know what it is, and that helps us quite a
I
bit.
have to read through all
Yeah, we do.
I have that too. It's like made every 3 months. My question, do they have like authors come out of these like live interactions with kids? But it's like through chat, but then those are recorded, so you can go back and watch them later.
Okay,
so
yeah.
that, because you're not going to be able to approve all those people, but it's vetted. I don't know. You know what I mean? Most people are using it.
It's a
as
pretty
service.
trusted.
Yeah.
Authors and
Yeah.
it's to teach a lesson.
Especially if it's pre-recorded. Anything you're watching that's been recorded and is being replayed is
Well, it's live.
it's both. It's both.
We can
At
send
one
you the
point,
link.
something going.
Right.
Yeah. What?
At one point, something going.
Right. Yeah. But what if you're participating in it live or participating in it not live? Yeah, that would be hard. We would have a lot of these things are gray areas that we would have to discuss as a team. And by discuss, I mean like I'm reviewing it and I'm like, oh, I don't know, and I go and be like, hey, what do you guys think? And we talk about it. And as we talk about these things more and more, we develop some more consistent guidelines. And that's one of the purposes of these first 2 years is to kind of help us learn what we need to learn. Help us learn the things that we don't know and need to figure out. And so we've been figuring those things out, and we're going to continue to do that. And so something like that, we would probably need to talk about it. So
So two questions here online. So the law says that for the bulk of funding, for the program goes to learning core subjects.
Yeah.
So would therapy services, like OT, speech, fall under this for an autistic child or special needs as a core subject as not as
Yeah.
relevant or applicable for that
Yeah.
for this child
So
situation?
so the law is like intentionally vague here. It says a substantial amount. And so I think what's substantial for one person is going to be different for another. So if you have a special needs kid and their main needs are speech therapy or something like that, like those are the most important things that that kid needs. And so it's understandable if they're spending more money on speech therapy than something else. Like the stricter we define everything, the less it's going to work for a lot of families. And that's why, yeah, we want parents to have freedom to use the funds for what they need most. And I think our program is always going to see that particular situation and be like, okay, that totally makes sense. Yeah, spend the money on the therapy.
Last question here from this list. How is it possible to get reimbursed for co-op fees?
Yes, if they're they have to be an approved vendor. Now,
Not all co-ops need that eligibility.
right, so
for
they
services.
also next year, depending on how we structure reimbursements, how we create the reimbursables list, co-ops might.
So the answer right now is we don't
The answer is right now is yes. Right now, in this moment for this school year is yes. If they're an approved service provider. Next year, it would be hard to fit them into any of the current categories for reimbursables. We have online fees, you have like online course fees, you have tuition. And see, I don't think you'd call it tuition to attend the co-op. Um, we would have to talk about it some more. I'm thinking right now they wouldn't fall under the reimbursables list, but we also don't know how we're going to be restructuring that next year. So for next year, not sure. For they definitely would have to be an approved vendor at the least. So yeah.
I have a random question.
Okay.
My daughter was born in September, but I've homeschooled her whole life. So
Yeah.
she's really in 5th grade.
Okay.
In all the school situations, she would be 4th grade.
Okay.
How would I just put, like, I turned her in on the NOI as in 5th grade.
Yeah.
Would I just do the same thing on this?
Yeah. You can just treat her as a 5th grader.
So if I kind of have left her that way because I didn't know what was going to happen. Like, I didn't mean to like push her ahead. I didn't really want
Yeah.
to. But at the end, I know this is a long ways away. I had the intent of like letting her have a gap year.
Okay.
Is there a gap year problem, or like if I graduate her, could she still use funds to help with like extra? I don't know. I guess it wouldn't be called dual enrollment at that point, but something like that. Is there?
Ooh, that's a good. So that's not something we've dealt with. If they're going to be considered you said your daughter, if she's going to be considered like a full-time college student, then no. If she's taking like a light year of homeschool where she's taking some college courses, I think that would be okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Super senior.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back
Good
when I
question.
will say we used to have a number of students who technically had all their college credits or high school credits for graduation by junior year, but they spent that senior year accumulating credits through middle college, through various trades, whether it be a flight program, coding, some kind of trade, occupation, licensure. They use those funds to go toward that just to help them have a little head start on life in general.
Yeah.
And so that would be what I would do in that situation.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Any other questions?
No more questions here. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Yeah, this is great. Thanks for having me.
You answered on the Facebook page too, so then it's like.
Yeah.
24/7.
Yeah. It's a lot. Appreciate it. So there are a couple. There's EFA. just you can search for Arkansas EFA, Arkansas Learns, and there are a couple of them. So
Okay.
yeah,
It's like a private group or something.
it's a group.
Okay.
It's a group. But I think you like request admission to be in. So
You have to lock it down because, so people who can show proof that they're in it now,
yeah.
because there are like reporters of people tracking and take screenshots. And
People that are in the program.
yeah, probably not yet. Just
Yeah.
right now she has, until,
All right.
appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Is this recorded? Like, is this video going to be up on YouTube? Great. Okay, because I think some people are going to want to watch it afterwards.
Appreciate it.
You
Thank you. Am I on again?
So,
These are my kids. Hey guys, we're still going. Give us 1 second, all right? Someone was asking about the super senior thing. The parent asked. Let me put this back on. Her daughter was basically going to finish all the schooling that she needs a year early, and then the year after that, she was just going to kind of do kind of a light year, maybe some dual enrollment, if she could still use the EFA program. And the answer was yes, as long as she's not like she would still need to fill out an NOI and be a homeschool student her final year. It would just be like kind of a light homeschool year for her. She might take a couple of like dual enrollment classes, and she would still be eligible for the EFA program. That was the question there. Okay.